You know, we all have such varied backgrounds, where we come from, our experiences, everything we've been through. And I would love to hear from each of us. Basically, what was something that was a very formative experience for you, your memories of your dad, or a formative experience that you remember growing up? And if you would be kind enough to share that. But memories from your childhood, obviously. And if I can start. So my dad lost his father when he was 3 years old. So grew up essentially raised by a single mom in a situation that was quite difficult and challenging in terms of where they lived. And so he came into fatherhood without really having experienced much of fatherhood himself. And yet, I look back and I think about what he was like as a father to me. And honestly, I can't fault him in any way. It took me a while to recognize that he was a bit different. He was not the kind of expressive kind of person who would come and hug you or do stuff like that. But in so many ways, he showed me his love and his care. But you know, one of the things I remember distinctly is the fact that you know, he loved sport, and he was always out playing badminton or tennis or something like that. And but there were times when we, as kids who were growing up together with all our friends, would have these soccer matches every evening, and it was just a little field, a dusty little field in front of the home, and we would all sit there and play. But then my dad started joining us as well, and he would play, and he was a really good player, so we always wanted him on our team. But the fact is, just the fact that he would come and play with us, I think I remember that distinctly more than anything else, was the fact that he came and played those games with us. What about you, Simba?
Hi everyone, my name is Simba, and yeah, unfortunately I lost my dad when I was 4 years old, and was brought up by my mom pretty much, really. And while I don't have so many distinct memories of my dad, I do have, you know, snippets of him. Weekends we would spend at home with his brothers, his, you know, sisters and all gathering as a family. And I remember the warmth of that time, you know, the joy we would have, and, you know, just being together. And that has stuck to me, you know, and just loving to be with family, those that are around me, that stuck to me quite, you know, yeah.
How about you, Paul?
Mine's a little different. Sort of grew up in a family of three, two sisters and mum and dad. In our family, wasn't a lot of conversation in the family. You know, you get up in the morning, nice weather, nice day, sit around after some exciting events, and it's like no one ever talks. So conversation, which is non-existent. That's why I'm fairly quiet at the moment. So. But yeah, pretty dysfunctional in that respect, in that way. Sport-wise, we just sort of, if you want to play sport, you play sport, but it was never really encouraged. Mum came along probably more than Dad did. If you got sick of sport, you just drop it, and there was never any encouragement or anything to, you know, take it up and keep on going. And it's sort of like that right all the way through life. You know, there's not a lot of encouragement on anything, so you're sort of on your own a lot of the time, and it shapes your future on how you are. So yeah, I'm being really vulnerable here, but yeah, we'll keep going later.
That's good, thanks, Paul. That's what today's about. Today's about going a little bit deeper, you know, and no matter who you are, whether you're a dad, not a dad, a mum, we've all had dads, or many of us are dads or will become dads, and I think it's an opportunity just to go a little bit deeper and just to get into the minds of some dads in the church, and you know, it's about what today is about. So some of you, or many of you, will know parts of my story because I share it fairly regularly from the pulpit here, but I grew up in a home where when I was about 6 or 7, my father left our family, and so Mum brought us up from that time onwards. And one of my most formative memories actually is I remember vividly the night that Dad came into our room. My brother and I shared a room at that time, and he came in, and sat on the bed and basically told us he had to go away for a while and told us to look after our mother. And then we didn't see him again for another 2 years. And so after that, meanwhile, he'd started a new relationship, ended up getting remarried. And so he was in our life to a point from that point, but he wasn't actually really in our home. And I think that formative thing for me from that moment onwards was probably never again really feeling safe in the sense of, that safety that you have when a father's there. And so I really felt that instability and insecurity from the time Dad left. And so that's probably one of the most formative memories of my childhood. I don't really remember much about family before Dad left. So most of my recalled memory is about life without Dad in the home. And it leads us to the next question, which is I want to ask all of us, when we think about Father's Day, what emotions does it stir? What things do we think about? So when I think about Father's Day, I'm a bit torn because as a son, Father's Day was never actually really a day of happiness for me. But then we had children young, so I was 22 when Caleb was born. And as a father, and I'll talk more about that in a little while, but as a father, Father's Day for me has been some of my happiest memories in life. So I've actually got 2 stages of life. In my first stage of life, Father's Day actually brought up a whole lot of probably negative memories. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was still like the exception to not have mum and dad in the home. It wasn't almost the rule that it has become in today's society. So there was only a couple of kids in the class that didn't have a dad in the home. And so it was something that I really noticed because when we had the sports and the friends and the parties and that, all the dads would be part of it. But our dad wasn't really around for that. So as a child, Father's Day wasn't really a place of happy memories or really that much importance either. Mother's Day was a very different story. But then as a dad, I love Father's Day. It just brings up so many amazing memories with my own family, with my children. And so it's actually really quite a bit of a dichotomy for me, where I've seen both sides of that. And I love Father's Day far more as a father than I ever did as a son. But how about you guys? Maybe Simba, what sort of emotions and thoughts come up for you with Father's Day?
Well, in my case, my story is pretty much similar to yours. I didn't even know there was Father's Day to start with in the earlier years of my life. It was something that I just didn't know about at all. And my first snippet into what Father's Day was probably when my son went to kindergarten. They'll get them to draw these card paintings on Father's Day and bring them home. And that was like my first exposure to it. But it was a beautiful feeling to get it from my son. And ever since then, it's something that's been quite dear to me, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, probably similar to you two. Like Father's Day for me is like you'd sit over the years in churches and you have Father's Day services, and guys would get up on a panel like this and be like, "Oh, I had a great time and a great father and great this." Well, I never had that. Yeah. So I made sure with our kids that we had that from that generation down. We did, but yeah, through my own father and that, there wasn't really, a really happy type Father's Day. I mean, we still celebrated it, but it was never had the meaning of, Dad did this with me or Dad did that, and love-wise, I can't recall even when Dad died that they never ever said "I love you." It's just a word I'd never ever heard from both Dad and Mum. Some say it was from that generation, but I don't think the generation really cuts it. You can say you love someone no matter what generation you come from. So, yeah, it's happy and sad.
You, Jacob?
Yeah, I think even the whole concept of Father's Day for me, I began to recognize it after coming to Australia, similar to you. I mean, and now it is a big thing even in India because everything is about making money out of any day you can make, right? So Valentine's Day, everything else, is just about money, I think. But yeah, so my first experience of Father's Day was after I got here. And I think when the emotions that come up when I have Father's Day are the fact that I don't have a dad who I can send or talk to today, or the fact that I lost him when I was 20, also it's a big, I find that a big hole. I never thought it would be as much, having got my family, and I know I have a father-in-law and stuff, but just not having my own dad. So on the day of, it's a hard day in a sense for me, because it was a day I wish I could send a card to him, or even just call him up and tell him how much he really meant to me, because I don't think I ever had the opportunity, because he was also a very, very private kind of person. We didn't talk about the touchy-feeling kind of things. And so for me to be able to express what I really felt about him, I never got the opportunity. And I think that is something I miss not having done. And so my message to anyone who's out here is, let your dads know, please, how much they mean to you, and talk to them or message them. They may not be here for very long. And then I don't want you to live in regret like I do. So, it was a hard one, yeah. Well done, Paul. Just thinking about, your formative years growing up, sometimes you have had a figure in your life that maybe was like a father figure to you, not necessarily your dad. Is there anyone like that in your life that you can think of? Someone who was a father figure, maybe not necessarily your dad. And maybe I'll just start off with that. My fondest memory of who my father figure is actually my father's second cousin. So every holiday we would have, and my dad was quite close to him, and we would make a long trip. So we grew up in West Africa, in Nigeria. And so where they lived was a fair distance away from where we lived. And so we would make big school holidays. Usually we would make the big trip to them, or they would make it to us. And he, who I called my uncle, was essentially a very different kind of person to my dad. He was very jovial, very, very humorous, very expressive in the way he expressed love and affection. And so I just enjoyed my memories of going there and being around him. Are some of my fondest memories, really, of that person and who he was to me. And also, sometimes he'd ask me, what is it that you want, And I'd say, look, I've been asking my dad for a bicycle for a very long time. and then he just gave me the money for the bicycle, And I still remember that distinctly. It was just the fact that he asked me what I wanted, what I needed, what I would like to do, stuff. He would ask me questions, and he expressed it practically by giving me the money to buy that bicycle. I have never forgotten it. It was a beautiful light green bicycle that I rode to school after that every day. And every time I rode it, I would think, my uncle Bose gave me this bicycle. You, Simba?
Yeah, well, in my case, that came from unexpected places to me. To start off with, I think my mom actually took up that role, And I'll probably just take this opportunity just to appreciate all single mothers out there. That I think they do a really great job in being the father. And my mom was actually a father to me in many ways. And so growing up as a child, I can't pinpoint male figures that I can say he was, a father figure in a sense. I sort of like picked up nuggets from different people as I went along. And it probably came at a later stage in my life when I got married, met my father-in-law actually. And that was the greatest exposure to what being a father means. And he was such a great man. Unfortunately, we lost him about 3 years ago, but the greatest lesson in my life in terms of fatherhood would have probably come from him.
Amazing how we're the same on a lot of areas. Like, for me, the guy that's had the most impact was my father-in-law. He's just like a father, really. Like, encouraged me on everything, drew out the real me, taught me stuff, showed me stuff. Was there when you failed, was there when you succeeded, and never criticised, never put me down. And just always was there. And even now, in his dementia days, he's still there as a key figure in my life. And I respect that a whole lot more. I know it sounds strange, when Dad died it was like, okay, but this father-in-law was just a real father for me and made such an impact on my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in my case too, and it is interesting how, because we haven't picked the four of us based on our particular backgrounds. It's interesting how three of us essentially grew up without a dad, or without at least emotionally without a dad in the home. And I think so many men in our society, and women, have had that same experience, and it is so formative. One thing that my mum also was like a father figure to us, and she did an incredible job, and she's sitting right over there now. So, but but one thing Mum did really well, because she did it very intentionally, was she ensured that we were always part of a church community and that we always had male role models throughout our teenage years. And there were 3 or 4 guys in particular who really just not sort of became part of our family, but they were there for my brother and myself. And you know, as we were going through those teenage years where maybe there are some things as a teenage boy that you don't want to talk about with your mum, for example. And, you know, we always had 2 or 3 guys who were believers, who were really strong, solid Christians who we knew we could go to. And then in my case too, my father-in-law, I was 18 when I started dating Tiff, actually 3 days before I turned 18. So we were quite young. I was married at 20, and so Tiff's dad was much more of a father to me, particularly in my younger years, than my own dad ever was. And he really did fill so much of that gap in my case too. Which is amazing when we have those different figures. And one thing I would say to all the men in the church today, whether you're a dad or not a dad, in a church community, we have an opportunity to sow into the lives of young men and women growing up. And I just really encourage you, like, as I think we have an obligation, we have a responsibility as men in our society, in our church, to actually stand up and to input something into the lives of the ones growing up behind us, you know. And for everyone that does something like that, for everyone that just speaks a word of encouragement into the life of a young person, or speaks a word of encouragement into a situation, you know, it's amazing the life that can bring, because they are some of my most formative memories, is other men speaking the words of life into my life that my father wasn't there to speak. And I think I just really encourage everyone in that. Now my next question is really to you, Jacob and Simba. You both grew up in very different cultures to Australia. You've got Indian and African culture, and you grew up in Africa as well, largely, Jacob. What is it like from a cultural perspective? You know, how is, say, Indian or African culture different than what we would know in Australian culture, just with the issue of fatherhood, fathers, you know, fathers in society? Like, let's talk about that for a minute. Simba, maybe, yeah.
Africa is a large place, and
sure, absolutely,
so many different cultures, and I doubt I'll be very representative of every other African, but I'll try. There is, you know, the stereotypical African father that comes to mind, you know, when you speak of fatherhood, the authoritarian, you know, discipline, but at the same time provider, protector, and all that. And yeah, for older generations, I would feel that was like the masculine type of fatherhood that existed. But over the years, I feel like that has mellowed a bit. Things started changing. Fathers a little bit more vulnerable, happy to share their feelings with their children. And yeah, like I said, from my father-in-law, well, he was from an older generation, but yeah, he was one of the most loving and expressive people I ever knew. And so that has actually changed a bit. So I wouldn't want to box it and say, oh, African fathers are, you know, hard and fast. You get a rod on your back anytime. Yeah, you know, but then, yeah, you would get that maybe ages back, but then, yeah, it's quite different now, I'd say, yeah.
Well, I think my answer would be similar in the sense that, yeah, they were strict, they are strict, and you are expected to, you know, do certain things, and your position is quite clear, as in there's no, you have to be respectful of your father and elders, and that is sort of drummed into you quite early on. Discipline is still, I think, part of the whole process of of growing up in India, or even, I don't know too much about Africa, but you've spoken for Africa. But in India, yes, discipline was still considered okay. So I still remember a few of the rods I've got on my back. Yeah. The little ones, with broomsticks, of course, not the big ones. Yeah. But they were good lessons. I mean, I don't look back, and I'm not scarred emotionally from those little canings that I got. And it was for with good measure. I deserved every one of them.
This is not an instructive conversation,
No,
by the way,
no,
guys.
no. But I think I've learned that you can discipline in love, and you can discipline without having to use the broomstick, the broomstick. Yeah, but I think that fatherhood, the whole concept, has changed. In India also, I am seeing that understanding of what it means to be an expressive, loving father, and that is, I think, the kind of idea that we are beginning to teach a lot more in churches as well. And so people are beginning to understand who a father is and how he should be with his kids. So definitely it is changing from what it was like. Yeah. Paul, you're a dad, but also a granddad, I believe. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
You don't look like it. Can you tell us something that you've learned as a granddad that you wish you knew when your own children were young?
Yeah, probably the key thing was to spend more time with them. For me, got involved in a lot of activities and stuff, a lot of church stuff, and it took away a lot of the time that I should have had with my kids. A lot of quality time, which I should have had with them. And I really missed a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff I could have sewed into my own kids. Did good, but if I had my time over again, which you'd never get that, I would do it entirely different. And I probably would not choose to go down the line that I went down. Still there because, I mean, you've got a calling on your life, but I'd certainly get the priorities totally changed around and that. And with the grandkids, we've got 6 grandkids. I've got some photos I'll show you if you like.
Yes,
Some of
please.
the best grandkids in the world. Like.
Amazing.
But yeah, we love them heaps and they love us. And yeah, some of the things that you missed in your own kids, you can break that generational stuff on them and really correct a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the stuff that shouldn't have been, and really train them up to be who they should be. And so yeah, we just love them, love being around them. So
Cool.
yeah.
And you can give them sugar and give them back to the parents, yeah?
Exactly.
Payback.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that stage. So you've sort of half answered my next question, Paul, so I'll throw back to you with this one, but I'm going to ask each of us, what's something that you would do differently, which you just sort of told us a minute ago, but also what's something that you've done well as a dad, that you think you've done well? So maybe, what's something you've done well, Paul?
I think probably encouragement. You know, always encourage the kids to be who they are, and no matter what they do, or even if they appear to fail by the world standards, they're still champions, and that they can still go on. So it's just keep on encouraging them to be who they are, to develop that character which is in there, and just encourage them to go along with the Lord. It doesn't always go how planned, but eventually it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in my case, I think one thing that I would have done differently, I would have made every moment count. You know, there's so many moments throughout life where you just in the moment you just think, oh, whatever, you know, it's a party, it's whatever the situation might be. But I would have made every moment count, because even at this stage of life, you look back on some of those moments and they really are some of the most important moments that you remember, and the moments that you did make count is actually reflective in your relationship with your adult children now, and the moments that maybe you didn't make count can also be reflective of the state of your relationship with your adult children. So I would, if I, the thing that I would have done differently is to recognise the importance of each of those moments as they happened rather than just afterwards. One thing that I think I did well, and I think it's reflective of the relationship I have with my 3 adult kids now, is I always tried to, every day, to let them know that I was there for them, that I love them no matter what happens. that I loved them, that I believed in them, and that I supported them. And one of my greatest joys now, as the father of adult children, is actually having a really close relationship with all three of them. All three of them want to spend time with me, want to have a peer-to-peer relationship. Like Caleb's still here in town, so we see each other regularly. But with the girls who are in Darwin and New Zealand, how often they just say, "Oh, why don't you come and see us? Want to spend time with you?" And I love the fact that I can have a really strong relationship with all three of the adult kids, and I think that's something that we did well as parents. How about you guys?
Well, in my case, maybe being the youngest, I probably have lots of mistakes that I'm doing right now. My son is over there. He probably can write a page full of stuff he thinks that I could be doing better. Yeah, but maybe off the top of my head, I try and reflect maybe every day to, try and be better. And I think I have been guilty maybe in a way of trying to raise maybe my children from a place of fear, fear of not wanting them to turn out a certain way. And I think maybe that gets you to be overprotective and a little bit hard and fast with them. And yeah, so I would love to try and be do it from a place of love more than it to be a place of fear, so yeah. But maybe what I feel I've done right, I think I got my son to support us now, and we don't argue a lot. yeah, but generally I think we just trying to bring them up in the faith, knowing God, and just being there for them is what I've been trying to do. Yeah.
I think all of us as dads, and I reckon all of you who are young dads as well, you will go through this thing called imposter syndrome, and you think, how can I possibly be a good father in bringing up these kids to be the best they can be? And I think I struggled with that a lot. I really thinking about whether I have been a good dad. I have always thought about the negative things that I did and how I could have done things better. But I think one of my biggest regrets is maybe not realizing how quickly time goes, because you are stressed trying to achieve things for yourself in order to provide for the family, but that takes so much time away from the family, and you think, oh, I'm doing this for their sakes, and you justify it. But then in a few years' time, they've left home and they've gone, and you realize that I wish I had taken that time extra to spend with them more. And maybe things I've done well. I think I raised my sons to be quite independent and to be quite able to stand on their own 2 feet. We have a good relationship. They will still talk to me, and we do have great chats at times. And I found that the whole dynamics has changed now. So I don't give them any advice. They give me advice now.
That starts at 15.
Yes. But good stuff. It's good stuff. If I try to tell them something, they say, no, actually, Dad, there's a better way. I say, okay, I'll listen to you. You guys know better now. Yeah. Dave, can I just say something? If you could say anything to the single mothers and those trying to fulfill the role of mom and dad in the lives of their children, what would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a really important one. So for anyone out there that is a single mum, single parent, maybe seasonally, for a season in life, you're trying to fulfill the role of mum and dad. Sometimes you can feel like it's just not enough, and sometimes the greatest fear you can have is maybe you can't be enough for your children. All I can say is just keep going day after day. Everything that you do, everything that you say, every moment of love that you show your children, it's actually transformative. You are doing an incredible job. We know that God's design for young lives is to have a mother and a father, and there are situations where you can't have that. But don't give up, because, and I can tell you as the child of a single mum who did an incredible job, that they will reach an age, your children will reach an age where they'll understand, where they'll get it, and at that time, everything that you've said and done will actually come back to bear fruit, whether that's good fruit or bad fruit. And so if you've been in a situation, say with maybe a messy relationship breakdown, where there's anger, where there's all sorts of things, don't weaponise your kids. Don't go there as much as you maybe feel like you need to justify yourself and do all that sort of thing or make it into a competition. Just love your kids. Protect them from any of that stuff, and there will come a day that they will love you for it and they will thank you for it. And I can tell you that your children can grow up as well-rounded, positive members of society, and you just keep going. Every moment, every day, what you are doing counts. And so just as a final question to all of us, just a really quick one, and that would be, if you could say anything to your 20-year-old self, sitting here now knowing what you know, what would you say? I'll go first. If I could speak to my 20-year-old self, I would say to myself that, remember, you are the first version of God that your children will see. Everything you say, everything you do will actually have a lasting impact on their life, on their relationships with others, with their own future wives or husbands, and on their relationship with God. So I would say to myself, just remember every moment of every day that you are the first God representation that your children will ever see. What would you say, Paul?
I would just say you can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. That's the important, to me, it's the important thing that, you don't have to be how you were, that you can change. It's your decision, and just, go for it. You're on the winning team, so, yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. How about you, Simba?
Well, I would say have a good relationship with yourself, and that flows out to eventually everyone else you have relationships with. And the best place to find that is in relationship with God. He knows the best version of who you should be, and He will lead you to that point. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd say also, apart from everything else, have a mentor, someone you can speak to and talk about the struggles. We'll all struggle as young dads. So, talk to somebody about it, but also recognize that the busy periods of your life will come to an end, and the hard parts of looking after a young child and the challenges that bring will also come to an end soon. There is hope on the horizon, but don't allow the pressures of what you're going through, work or whatever it is, take away the joy of being able to spend time with these precious ones you have been given by God. That's it.
Amen. That's awesome. Well, gents, I'd like to really thank you for your time. Thank you for being open and vulnerable as well. And let's give all gents up here a round of applause.
If you can just take it. Thank you. Sorry. We're coming to the end of the service, but before we finish, I just want to do one last thing. So today I want to recognize an inspirational father in our church. This is a man who has two sons, both grown up now. But when his elder son was 2.5, he had his wife delivered their baby, second son. And within days of that delivery, his wife passed away. And he raised those two boys essentially on his own, made a lot of decisions along the way to every one of them, some of them really hard, to help those children grow up in the best way he could. But apart from looking after his own kids, he was also such an incredible dad and a mentor to many young kids in the church, and ran little groups at home where he mentored and looked after young boys and spoke into their lives, Bible study, feeding them. And that's not stopped there. So those young men have all gone on to become adults now, and this person continues to have a great relationship with his boys, but he also continues to be an integral part of the church, and he also continues to play a pivotal role in the lives of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, not only helping to have Bible studies with them, but also even just taking them out for a meal and having meals with them together and just speaking into their lives. He's an incredible man, and we want to honor him today. So, Ken Fiddler, will you come up on stage, please? Will you stand up, please?
know, one thing as a father, the thing is that there's the failures that you do. But the fact that my boys want to talk to me, and that's probably the greatest thing in life. So parents, dads with your children, the most important thing that you're never going to get back is that relationship. And that relationship with your kids, there's things that we make mistakes, there's things that we get wrong. But you know what? At the end of the day, work doesn't matter, life doesn't matter, the stuff it's your kids. And that thing is if they still love you when you're old, and when they get old, then that's all that matters.
Ken. We're just going to pray for Ken now and also for every father in the room right now. Dave, would you do that?
Father God, we thank you for this man of God, Lord, this man who has, through so many seasons of life, stood as a father to his own children, as a father to his stepdaughter, as a father to,
Yes, Lord.
to so many young men in the church.
Yes, Father.
Lord, I thank you for every one of those moments, every one of those words he's spoken into the lives of people, Father. And
Yes, Father.
sometimes it's the things that no one sees, that no one knows about, the things that he just faithfully does day after day, week after week, year after year. Father, I just honour him for his
Yes, Father.
for his resilience, Lord.
Yes,
I honour
Lord.
him for just continuing to speak into the lives of everybody who he has the opportunity to speak into. Father, I thank you that this is a man who has raised two young men of God, Lord, who are making their way in the world. Lord, I thank you for the fruit that's in his life, Father, and for every father in this church today, Father, every
Yes, Lord.
father who just day by day does those things with their kids, speaks words of life, speaks words of encouragement. Lord, as we speak words that build our children up, well, there is nothing that can build a child up more than a word of encouragement or praise from their father. And Lord, I just pray that you'll just move our hearts as dads to continue speaking those words of life. Lord, that we will bring those things to life as we speak them, that we would bring those words of encouragement to reality. And Lord, I honour Ken, I honour all the dads in the church, Father, and we honour you because you are the Father that showed the way. You loved us so much, even when we were your enemies, that you sent your Son into the world to identify with us, to walk that journey and to take our sin upon your shoulders. Lord, we honour you as the most incredible Father of all, and we honour Ken and we honour every other dad in the church this day. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen.